Here are a couple ways of how we're training service techs wrong. So I've been doing a lot of research on e-learning companies and what makes good training for service techs. I'll tell you just what I found with the problems of what is currently out there. A lot of the big e-learning companies, or the, hey, we're going to train your whole service group for $10 per user every month. These are what I see as the problems. So number one, they use computer voice. Since AI is now the new hot and trendy thing, people call it AI, and AI is replicating voices. It's still not perfect. Will it probably get there? Yes, but using computer voice makes me just want to rip my ears out. It is awful, and when we think of training, we need to think about engaging service techs at a human level, and computer voice just takes the humanity out of it. It makes it bland, it makes it unemotional, and I really believe it is the highest barrier for very corporate mass-produced training. Number two, softball questions. So when you take some of these trainings, and especially with safety trainings, taking a lot of safety trainings, they will have the computer voice read off a couple paragraphs or whatnot, and then a question will be an identical sentence. So it's like, Bob painted the walls blue. And then it'll go, let's test your knowledge. And it goes, what color did Bob paint the walls? And then you say blue. So it's essentially short-term memory of a fact, which requires no cognitive function and deep thinking of, am I actually learning here? So what I've seen most prevalent is the questions are, they're softball, like just fact-finding questions, and then those same questions, they'll have them during the training, and then those same questions are transferred over, and then they're just repeated with the exact same answers in the final exam. So we as humans are very good at short-term memory of seeing pattern recognition, and if you are seeing a question, I found that, are you actually seeing a question and answer, or are you just recognizing an answer that doesn't really apply in the real world? I hope that makes sense. So like, the biggest thing I can relate to it is when I was like in high school. If you're an hour before an exam and you're just cramming material, and you're just trying to just recognize words and put stuff together, then on the test, you're just recognizing words and putting stuff together, I would pass the test, but you asked me about that 2 days later, I couldn't tell you a single thing. So when we're training service techs, it's important that we're able to train them on facts, but also train them on thinking. Most training I see is just basic softball facts that probably never will relate to actually real world thinking. And I think there's a disconnect between what's going to move the bar to get somebody over the hump of this person knows nothing to they can cognitively think about what they know. And I know there's levels. People need to learn facts. I haven't seen e-learning training that does it really well, of users really needing to think about what they're learning. And I think so many of these giant corporate e-learning companies want to impress you by getting certificates and passing scores, and that's not the goal. Our goal is to train people to be better service techs and more equipped so that they can move up in their career and we can grow the field. And feeding into the machine of more certificates, more passing grades, more courses is a business strategy. As I would like to say, it is appeasing the shareholders, but the shareholders don't have the company's best long-term interests in mind. So as a company, as an owner of BoilerN, as I create training for service techs, it's really trying to figure out how do we create humanized training that also makes them critically think, but also does give them questions that are not super complicated, but that they can derive from the training. So the biggest thing I've also found is these giant corporate trainings. Another problem, no video. So a lot of trainings will either be a PowerPoint slide, maybe an animated PowerPoint slide. They may even get into probably an animated SCORM module. SCORM is essentially a file structure that's super popular in e-learning that's probably outdated, but people don't want to realize it. That's another topic for another day. But since we don't have subject matter experts and the people creating the training are not in the field, and subject matter experts cost so much time and money to film training and write scripts, that we end up with no video. And I think the best training that I've ever received is a knowledgeable person standing in the boiler room showing me how to do something that I've read about in a manual, that I'm like able to learn and ready to learn. And it's seeing that I believe we can put on a screen. I don't believe only training can be in the boiler room, but I also don't think that this is the path to better training, because this is the corporate route and to make it easy. And you may be like, well, it's easy to throw stones. Well, I'm dedicated to this. Is this working? We need to ask ourselves. And these numbers that these e-learning companies are toting of certificates and number of hours and made up course hours and all this stuff, does that actually really matter when we're training service techs to, in this case, my case, be in the boiler room? And I believe none of this matters and none of this actually benefits it. And when you are taking people who are maybe resistant to training and maybe are not the most motivated, this is not how we take people from, hey, we want you to learn about this industry that sometimes has hard hours and long nights, and you're going to get frustrated and people are going to yell and all this stuff. I don't believe this is the way to do it. So how do we do it? Subject matter experts on camera, real boiler rooms, real photos, photos of the industry. That's another thing we need to get better at. No stock photos. That's another one. No stock photos. Stock photos cheapen the entire experience. It's like buying a kit car Ferrari. Yeah, it looks cool maybe on the outside, but once you look at it for 5 seconds, you realize it's a kit car Ferrari and it's just the cheapest thing ever. Stock photos water down the HVAC industry, the boiler industry. It just makes everything seem so generic, but so many companies are afraid to take photographs and take video and invest in that we end up just resorting to stock photos because we can find them for a free license or free online, and now we're done with it. How do we expect training to train humans when we are taking the humanity out of it? We want to see raw emotion. Stock photos do not have raw emotion. They have a guy with a white hard hat, with a clipboard, with a button-down shirt, with an electrical meter on something that is not even electrical. It's like it's not even realistic. We want to see the ruggedness of the field. The boiler industry, HVAC, it is cool. Boiler rooms are cool. There is cool stuff. And stock photos cheapens that. When people go home, what do? They go watch their television. They go watch YouTube. There are amazing educational people on YouTube that are not in HVAC, not in the boiler industry, and they have millions of followers that teach about like educational science or chemistry and cool projects, and they're not pulling out computer voice videos with no videos and just slides. It is productions, but it costs a lot of money. It's a lot of time investment, but I believe that's the only way we're going to move the ball forward is and get over the hump of, we can't train anybody and this isn't really working and we don't really know what to do. We have to invest in real people with real video and real photos doing real stuff in the industry.